Hi, this is Jay Varma, and welcome to Thermometer. On this show, I check the temperature of public health in the US and around the world, and I give you expert insights on infectious diseases and public health. Today, we need to talk about something urgent: measles. It's back and it's spreading. Now, I've already covered this topic in detail in two previous videos. One video is about how measles spread so easily through the air, and the second video is about how we don't have any drugs to treat people who get infected with measles. And this third video is maybe the most tragic one of all. It's about how the measles virus attacks kids' brains. You may have seen the headlines about measles outbreaks occurring in 2025 in Texas, in New Mexico, and in other states. But what most people don't know is that this isn't just about rashes and fevers. Measles can cause blindness, it can cause deafness, and it can rewire a child's brain in ways that doctors still struggle to fully understand. So today I'm going to explain briefly what's causing the measles comeback. Second, how does measles damage the brain? And third, what can we do to stop it before more children suffer lifelong consequences? So let's start with what's happening right now here in 2025. In just the first 2 months of the year, we've had more measles cases in the US than in all of 2023. Why is that? Because measles spreads like wildfire. The virus doesn't need you to cough. It doesn't need you to sneeze. It spreads just by breathing. So if you walk into a room where someone with measles stood for 2 hours ago, you could still get infected because the virus particles entered the air and then they hang around in the air. And if you're unvaccinated, you have a 90% chance of catching it. Now, this latest outbreak started in a Texas community with long-standing vaccine resistance. From there, it jumped to other pockets of unvaccinated people in other states. But here's the part that really worries me. Some parents are now even hosting measles parties, deliberately exposing their kids to the virus, thinking it's going to give them, quote, natural immunity at no cost. And that couldn't be more wrong. It could cost those kids their brains and their lives. Most people think of measles, as I said, it's just a rash and a fever and a few days off from school. But that's not the real danger that we worry about. The real danger is what happens inside the body, particularly inside the brain. So let's break it down. Measles can attack the brain at 3 different time points: immediately, within months, and even years later. The first condition is called primary measles encephalitis. This happens when the measles virus goes straight to the brain. It's rare. It only occurs in about 1 in 1,000 kids that get measles. But when it does happen, it's deadly. It kills about 15% of the people who get it. And those who survive, 1 in 4, 25%, are left with permanent brain damage, seizures, learning disabilities, memory problems. Now, during that acute illness, so immediately after you've been infected, you can also get damages to your senses. One of the first symptoms of measles is conjunctivitis, or red eyes. And this swelling can be so severe that it leaves kids with scarring and can make them blind. Another symptom of the acute infection of measles is ear infections that are so severe that you can go deaf. That's right. In some cases, measles can leave you or your child blind and deaf. Now, then there's what happens in the months after recovery. Even after the measles symptoms are gone, some kids develop a condition called acute post-infectious measles encephalomyelitis. It's a long name, but basically what it means is the body's immune system turns against them, attacking the brain. So it isn't just the virus, it's the immune reaction to the virus. Some kids lose their ability to walk, others develop epilepsy, seizures, and 1 in 5 don't survive. Now there's a really scary thing. If that wasn't scary enough, those are conditions that happen as soon as you get infected with measles and months after you get measles. But one of the scariest conditions of all is a long-term damage condition. This is a situation in which the measles virus can harm you 10 years after you got that initial infection. Some children who get measles before the age of 2 develop a condition called subacute sclerosing panencephalitis, or SSPE for short. Their brains start to deteriorate slowly over years. At first, they have small memory lapses, then seizures, then a complete decline in their ability to think, and ultimately they die. So let's think about this. A 2-year-old gets measles because their parents didn't want them to get vaccinated. And then 8 years later or 10 years later, when they think they're totally healthy, they die from it. And yet, some people are saying that this disease is harmless. Now, it doesn't just stop at the brain. Measles is like a factory reset for your immune system. It erases your immunity to diseases that you've already beaten, like pneumonia or the whooping cough. But here's the thing. We're talking about damage to the brain. So it also puts you at risk for getting infections in your brain, something called meningitis. So when the measles virus is destroying your immune system, it's putting you at higher risk for other infections that can damage your brain. So what can we do to stop this? The measles vaccine. It's one of the safest, most effective vaccines that was ever created. 2 doses gives you 97% protection. And the risks, they're minimal, far, far below the risks of the measles virus yourself. But I get it. Some parents, some people, they still have doubts. Even though I've told you about all the different ways that the virus can attack your brain. It can make you blind. It can make you deaf. It can cause brain swelling and damage immediately when you get infected. It can cause brain swelling and damage a few months after you've been infected. It can lead you to get brain swelling and damage 10 to 12 years after you've been infected. And it can damage your immune system so that you can get other infections in your brain. But let's hear a story that might hopefully convince you and other people about why this is so important. There's a girl named Olivia Dahl. You might not recognize her name, but you probably know her father, the famous author Roald Dahl, the man who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the book Matilda, and of course, a book about a mischievous young girl also named Olivia. In 1962, the real Olivia Dahl got measles. Back then, there was no vaccine. So almost every kid who got measles got it when they were a child. And she was 7 years old. Within days, she developed measles encephalitis, the damage and swelling in the brain that I just described. She became confused, and then she lost consciousness. And then she was gone. Roald Dahl never got over it. And when the measles vaccine became available 2 years later, he spent the rest of his life telling parents to get their kids vaccinated. In 1986, he wrote, "It is not generally accepted that measles can be a dangerous illness. Believe me, it is. Parents who now refuse to have their children immunized are putting the lives of those children at risk." That was true in 1986, and that's still true today. So if you found this video helpful, please share it. Someone in your life needs to hear this message. And if you want to keep up with the latest expert insights on infectious diseases and public health, subscribe to this channel, to Thermometer, and I'll see you in the next video.